Do you see that we've been flocked? I love it. I love it. Because when you're part of a flock, you belong, don't you? And so, so our topic for the whole month is about belonging. So often February is also about love and romantic relationships and all of that kind of thing. And yet, there's something really important about a way of expressing and experiencing love that I think is captured in this idea of belonging. So we're going to explore that this month. We're going to begin with belonging is an inside job, as Shar so beautifully sung to us, right? It begins with ourselves. It begins right where we are. And it's particularly challenging and important when we think about the fact that we are beginning Black History Month and how marginalized people, Blacks and African Americans, have been not invited to the table, haven't belonged. And slowly but surely, we've been working now for hundreds of years to shift that consciousness. And we have to shift that consciousness collectively, incredibly important. And we have to begin right where we are within our own selves. This has become incredibly important to me and enormously, what shall I say? It's astonishing to me how many conversations I have had in the last, 5 years or so, realizing how many people who look healthy, successful, joy-filled, spiritual, who walk around in the world feeling as they don't fit in and they don't belong. And identifiably feeling alienated from groups, rejected by family. And it's painful, as many of us can attest, as we think about our own journeys and our own life. So last month, we exercised the cerebral muscles, did we not? Yes, we did. So this month, we are exercising the heart muscles and the experience muscles. And so as we go through the year, we exercise different aspects of ourselves so that in the overarching wholeness of the year, all parts of us have been activated, stimulated, and I trust, inspired and grown. So I'm going to start with my story, or pieces of my story, as I was really thinking about this belonging as an inside job. And so I don't know about you, how many of you had this experience, but in my childhood, I knew that I was adopted. Yeah. Clearly felt like an alien in my own family, wondered what planet I had fallen from, and fallen into this craziness. Interestingly enough, when I was in my 40s, my mom corroborated this experience of mine when we were sitting at Starbucks one day, and she said, "Petra, I think I need to apologize to you." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" She said, "I think you were a neglected child." I was like, "Okay, that is a totally bizarre thing for you to say. What are you talking about?" She said, "I was so busy dealing with your father's rage and your sister's volatility. I cannot tell you how grateful I was that you could take care of yourself. And I counted on that you could take yourself in the backyard and read a book, that you could go to your room and play by yourself. And I think now, looking back, that you were a neglected child." Who knew? One more trauma I can chalk up to being a victim of. It's my excuse. But it was an extraordinary moment. It also corroborated an experience I had. My first counseling sessions, I was 13, went to a teen shelter, and I got into some counseling there. And I remember the very first conversation that this young man had with me. And he said, so, let's get to know each other and the family and what's going on. And he said, so describe your dinner table to me. Tell me about your dinner table. And I said, oh, okay, well, it's only an inimitable 13-year-old can do. And so as I recollect it, what I said to him was, well, my dad would talk about his day, and it would be all about the upsets of the day and everything that had gone wrong, and it was always this big deal. My mother would soothe him and help him kind of calm down, and then she would talk about her day and the things that she did, and then my sister would talk about with school and how all the stuff had gone wrong and all the people and all the and then dinner was over. That was my dinner table. My whole childhood. At 15, I ran away. After my mother remarried, my parents got divorced, my mother remarried, and I ran away from school. I was put into an alternative school because I was one of those problem children, Of course, the problem was that while I was smoking pot every day and doing drugs all the time, I was still pulling A+ grades, and they did not know what to do with me. And when they discovered that I was forging all of my skip notes. I was actually in the yearbook that year. My boyfriend and I, the backs of us sitting on the hill, we were in the yearbook, the picture under cutting classes. So they didn't actually know what to do with me, so they sent me to an alternative school, which saved my life and saved my academics. And for the first time, I discovered that my misfitness was not unacceptable. I was in a whole school of misfits. Some of them were truly troubled. Many of them were so smart, the system didn't know what to do with them. We had people they were bused from downtown Philadelphia. They were bused in from hoity-toity somewhere over there. And they were bused in from my sort of middle-class neighborhood. And we were in this milieu together, and we were treated like college students. You want to come? Okay, I don't care. You got to pass your exams, put in your papers, and saved my life. I graduated a year and a half early, and what I learned was, there's a lot of people out there that are really different, that don't fit the mold. I might be one of them, because everybody else was wearing jeans, and I was wearing long skirts. I wore cotton long skirts my entire time at the alternative school, while everybody else was, doing the cool thing. And then I didn't want to do a 2-hour bus ride, so I walked literally an hour to school and an hour back in my long skirt, my floppy hat, as a hippie wannabe, right? I missed it by just a portion of time. And because of all of that, despite the fact that I realized that there were a lot of people that were different, I was still basically a loner. I made a lot of friends, and I was friends with everybody that was in every clique, but I wasn't in any of them. Right? I was one of those people that kind of moved around, lots of different engagements, but no group to which I actually belonged. And it was a long time. I was probably, again, in my 40s or 50s, that I discovered that this was because I was an introvert. But at 16, I didn't know that. I just thought I was wrong. At 17, I had been accepted at the University of Washington. I moved away from Philadelphia to Seattle. It was as far as I could get. I applied to Hawaii, but I decided I wasn't going to do that. I applied to Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii. Can you tell what I was trying to do? Because I knew that I did not belong in my family. I didn't fit, and despite the fact that I would have said growing up that my mother was my closest friend, things had really changed. And I walked around in the world alone and lonely, which is, of course, why I went into one relationship after another, right? You know that story. All the ways in which we try to then fill the loneliness. Drugs, alcohol, sex, relationships, the whole 9 yards. Good enough, during that time, I found Science of Mind, and I found the community in Seattle, which is now the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. And I found that. And when I first walked in and all these people were hugging, I was like, mm-mm. And I knew for a fact that all of it was BS. That all that hugging, So I came in for 6 months. I came in after the service started, and I left before it was over, because I'm not going to do the BS anymore. No, I'm not going to be fake. Not going to pretend. I know that I don't fit in, and that's not okay with me. That you pretend that I'm okay. So I went into classes. Classes was my recovery. I was in classes 4 nights a week, on the weekends when I could be. And there's a poem that I was exposed to, which I know many of you know. That was an opening for me. Gave up. Yeah. Ooh, man, I hope I can read this. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all people. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull or the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. I can attest to that. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive it to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Desiderata by Max Ehrman was found in a Catholic church in the 1920s and was for a long time ascribed to some deep, mystical, hidden, spiritual something, and finally came out that this gentleman had written this poem. All of that spoke to me, but the piece that captured my soul: you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. Now, I was clear that I couldn't trust people, but I had learned as a child, whispering to the fairies in the grass of my backyard, that I could trust nature. And that sentence opened a door for me of belonging. Belonging to myself, belonging to the universe. I belong to myself, and I belong in my life, and I belong to the universe. This was an astonishing revelation for me. So I'm going to share with you 4 or 5 things that along the way helped me move into this place of belonging. And that I did, in fact, belong in the universe. And that I did, in fact, belong in my own life. At first, the first one is at that same center, CSL in Seattle. I had gotten, as I said, I took all the classes, so I became a practitioner in record time. And at 19, I started a ministerial school in Seattle because they wouldn't take me in Los Angeles. I was too young. So we started our school of our own. And while that was going on, I was watching a lot of other practitioners who'd been around who were older than me, going up on the platform, and they were reading readings and they were doing, practitionering things. And here I was a practitioner, but I wasn't getting to do any of that stuff. And what did I hear in my brain? Well, of course, nobody ever picks you. You don't fit. You don't belong on that platform. Of course, they're not going to pick you. And I said, wait. But Spirit has already picked me because Spirit has become me. Spirit has already picked you because Spirit has already become you, has individualized itself as you. And so I walked around. Spirit has already picked me. I pick me. Then I was on the platform so much I had to say no. But do you see where it started? Here. It started here. Recognizing that I had already been picked because Spirit was already showing up as me, the I that I am. And that when I picked me, I fit and I belonged. The next thing that was the big revelation for me is I remember going to a program called On Course, and was a lot like Aston Lifespring, only with Science of Mind thrown in. And I remember the facilitator saying, well, you do realize that people who are talking about you, all those people you're trying to please, they're talking about you for about 5 minutes, and then they're on to the rest of their life. And you are managing your life on those 5 minutes. But you have to live inside your life for 23 hours and 55 minutes. Shit. That was like a revelation to me. Do you know what I mean? Well, I'd given so much impact and spent so much time. What do they think? Oh my God, they're talking about me. I know I don't fit. I know I'm a little weird. I'm blah, 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 blah. I didn't do it right. I was too loud. I was too strong. I was too unladylike, whatever it is. This is true for all of us. People who are talking, all those people we're trying to please, they talk about us for about 5 minutes. Maybe if they're really into it for 15. But we have to live in our own lives 365 days of the year. I have to decide what I think about myself. And that's when I coined for myself the idea, can I look myself in the mirror in the morning? Did I behave in such a way that I can look myself in the mirror? Do I feel good about how I'm showing up? Is there something I need to learn about this? Right? That was my check, looking myself in the mirror, not looking at how other people were looking or talking about me. I love this by Michelle Clark, because I think part of what grows in understanding that belonging is an inside job is not what I would call self-love or even self-acceptance. I would call it self-compassion. I hope that when you look back on your life, you have empathy for the well-intentioned version of yourself that didn't always get things right. I hope you give yourself credit for trying and for persisting and for showing up even when things didn't go as they planned. I hope that as you continue to learn and grow, you also continue to find deeper levels of self-acceptance and self-understanding. I hope you keep the lessons you learned, but leave the guilt and shame behind. I hope you know that every version of you that has ever existed is worth celebrating. Mikhail Clark. There's no T in it, so Mikhail Clark. So I had this interesting conversation a few years ago, and it was part of this revelation of all of this for me. Is a minister that I've known for a really long time and been in and out of pulpits and in and out of, a little bit in and out of CSL. And the story has always been, they don't appreciate me, and I don't belong, and I don't fit, and they're doing it wrong. And I remember having a coaching conversation, and the conversation was, how do you do it? How have you stayed a part of it for so long? Well, CSLDallas, we've sometimes been on the not A list. So when we first got our website, not the one we have, but the one before, we were involved in helping CSL rebrand and get our website. And it was taking a long time. So we took what came in the branding and we made our own website. And we were super excited because we were like, yeah, this is good. We're doing all this stuff. We're going to do it here. We paid thousands of dollars to get it done. We got it up. And then we went to the next branding meeting. And they put up our website and said, this is how not to do it. Not the first or the last time that we've been so far out front that that's happened. I remember when I first started pulling off Inward Journey from practitioner training, and I split the practitioner training in half and said, no, I want everybody to go through Inward Journey. I want all of you to go through Inward Journey, whether you're online or in person. It's the most amazing, deepening experience you can imagine. It's an unbelievably deep walk. But there was a lot of about that. Of course, 12 years later, they decided to do it. So, and we talked about all these stories because he knew of a lot of these things, right? Because we'd been around for a long time. And he said, how do you belong to an organization that does that to you? And my answer was, I belong because I choose to belong. I don't care whether they think I belong or not. There's nowhere else I want to hang my hat. I love the science of mind. I love the people in it. I'm good with a fair amount of things they're doing. And if there's something that we can contribute by being a little out in front, I'm all over it. And I have years of having a thick skin. And lots of people who are doing amazing work. It just looks different than the work that I do or that we do. And they might not fit here, but that's not their job to fit here. They're doing what they're doing. So why do I have to have an opinion about that? Let them. Great. Fabulous. Go forth and prosper. We're doing the same. We're going forth and prospering. I belong because I choose to belong, and I keep choosing to belong. Because I've decided I belong. And I've decided we belong because we have an enormous contribution that we're continually making. Do you see, it's not always just about what I get from belonging. Belonging is a two-way street. It's as much about what I give, how I participate and engage. Yes? Even in families, this is true. So this one, I really had to start confronting this over the years challenge with family, right? And over the years learning the difference between our biological family and our chosen family. And some of us don't actually fit in our biological family for whatever reasons, whether it's lifestyle or choosing a religion or just not following the path that was expected or accepted or whatever it is. And we find ourselves not fitting in. And so I remember, the first time I remember hearing about a chosen family, I was like, oh, you can do that? Wow. And I started really thinking about that. And I started building that. And I started thinking about that in terms of community, CSLDallas community, right? We're a chosen community, which is simply an extension of choosing a family, choosing people to be around, hang around, engage with, be grown by, pushed a little bit by. All the places we get to practice being and showing up the way that we have decided is in alignment with what we believe to be true. We choose to belong where that our chosen family is where we feel accepted. And we do feel as though we fit in, not necessarily perfectly, not all the time, hence my story about CSL. But it's clear to me I'm accepted there and I fit in because I know that I belong. This is, I think, the most important part. Part of it is for me to recognize that I don't always belong in somebody's idea of what a minister should look like. Ooh, and I swear way too much for some people. I am neither a charismatic speaker, nor am I particularly pastoral. What the hell's left, right? Lots of things, let me tell you. But they don't always show up on the radar screen as to what a minister is supposed to do and look like. And I had to discover that I belonged in my own ministry, whatever that looked like. My own unique gifts and talents. And of course, I've surrounded myself with people who are charismatic, hence Karen Fry was hired, right? Michael Gott before her. Michael Gott, super charismatic, right? Pastoral people. Marcia Magdapur and Patty and our practitioners, super pastoral, because that has to be present. It just isn't really present in me, not in the same way. I love people differently. But my love is equally as important. So's yours. You might love a little differently than other people, right? You might show up a little bit. Maybe you're a little softer, a little harder. Maybe you're a little louder or a little quieter. Maybe you tell the truth way too much. Maybe you don't tell the truth enough. But your love is yours. And I learned to value the way in which I love people. Do you see? Now I belong in the relationship with them. And they belong in mine. These are the things that are so important. And these are the things that I've tried to make sure CSLDallas emulates as a community. That it is a place of acceptance, a place of openness for neurodiversity, for the past from which we all come, the traumas that we all bring, the crappy ways we behave out of those traumas and all of that, all of our unskilled behavior, because we're belonging in a community that is loving and growing together, and creating that space in which we can be supported, empowered, poked, nudged, to continue to be more and more and more of ourselves. Do you see, that acceptance is so important. And it is, of course, then immediately engages in lifestyle, in race, in socioeconomic systems. It includes our LGBT and ethnicity and differently abled and age and whatever the outer list is. Because I believe people belong in the universe. I believe they belong in their own lives. And therefore, if they choose CSLDallas as their community, you belong here. Thank you. We had an extraordinary experience of this in our Costa Rica trip. A widely diverse group of people, age and race and interest and length of time at CSLDallas and depth of how much they practice science of mind. And it was so clear to me that over the course of that 8 days, that in that retreat, in that beautiful place, everybody found their place of belonging. No cliques, just groups, and the groups mixed, and people sat with each other and Lots of laughter and lots of tears and deep, deep, deep conversations, revelations and breakthroughs. Absolutely extraordinary, because each and every person on that trip chose to belong to that group. Yeah. And didn't let anything stand in their way. Oh, you're too old, you're too young, you're too different, you're too this, you're too that, whatever. And there was so much inter-inspired growth and revelation because of it. What an extraordinary experience. And so this is why, for me, community is so important. It's not just about being fed. It is also about the experience of belonging, which is a giving and receiving experience. Now, for those of us who live here in Dallas and DFW, this belonging is best felt in person in the room, although we love it that it's also easy for you to be online. What we really need is for those of you who are online in general or who aren't in the DFW area, is to help us understand, how do we create belonging for you? If you aren't here in the room, to feel it. And if you're local, or if you're flying through DFW, come on down. Feel the belonging. You belong here. If you're a part of the men's group, or you take one class online, or any such thing, this community is here. Right? And over and over and over again, we have the opportunity to choose. Being part of a community. You know the Blue Zone thing? One of the 7 pieces of that is a community. I don't know how people do it. I would not have survived my many divorces. I would not have survived the challenge of raising a child who had extraordinary physical challenges and emotional issues. I would not have survived the loneliness of ministry. I would not have survived, I would not have learned about myself, my strengths, my places where I need work, my shadow, or my light. I've learned about all those things in community. This is what we do here. We love people into themselves. Thank you for that. So here's the deal. What I have discovered, I'm this years old, and I've just now discovered this. The constant need to fit in is belonging from the outside, because it's somebody else's idea of what it looks like. Okay, this is a massive revelation for me. This idea that we're constantly seeking to fit in. Fit into what? Someone else's idea of it, right? And so belonging is an inside job. It's our intentionality. It's our willingness to belong to ourselves, to belong in our own life, to recognize that we already belong to the universe. You can't not belong. So now we can choose to belong to the situations and places where we find ourselves in, but we can also seek out those places where our belonging is shared. Right? Thank you for that. So I had another big thing about that just the other day. My stepfather passed away, and some relief in all the pain and suffering. And I went to the house to take a look at it, because Jason and I had lived there for 4 years. And the key that my mother had given me didn't work. And I couldn't get in. Yeah, there. And my whole life, I haven't fit in my family. I've spent the whole last year really making peace with how invisible I've been, not only to my first family, but also to the second one from which I ran away. And that key in that lock was like a visceral punch in the gut. Yeah, you still don't belong. No, I said to myself. I still don't fit in with your need for me to be a certain way. Follow a certain religion, marry a certain person, have a certain kind of life. And you know what? I don't fit in that. I don't. And I've spent a lifetime learning how to be not just okay with it. Thank you so much, Carmen. Learning not only to be okay with it, but to revel in it. It is your life. Remember, you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. And you have a right to be here. And so it is.